Welcome back, Pod People. My guest today is Joshua Nelson, the writer-director of Aware of the Wolf, Dating Horror Stories, and a bunch of other films that you can find on Tubi and also probably elsewhere. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So these are some really fun micro budget or lower than that films that I watched a few but not all of on Tubi. And the first thing that jumped out to me when I was watching the second one is that I recognized a lot of the same actors from the first one that I watched.
Mhm.
So that had me thinking of things like early John Waters films where it's just these like groups of friends who are want to make movies together, and they don't have money, but they have passion. So tell me a bit about, like, is this in fact like a troupe of friends that you guys just wanted to make movies together? How did that come about?
So, first, let me thank you from the bottom of my heart for the John Waters comparison, because John Waters is such an influence on me. I actually run an acting school, and on my wall is a giant painting of John Waters. Yes, I have a group of actors that are, I believe, very talented at different levels of their work stage. Some are newer, some are out there working, and they are all in it for the love of acting. Many of them are true horror fans, and they love to do this for the passion of it, for the excitement of it. They want to work. They want to be acting. They understand that acting is fun, and this is what they do for fun. So even if it's their job, they have to understand this is fun. So yes, I do use many of the same people. And I'm grateful because, as you said, we are working in that no budget range. And when you do that, you pretty much need people that are willing to do this for the love of doing it. It's not that I don't want to pay people, I would love to. It's just that when the money's not there, there are other things that drive people to work.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a little surprised to hear that you described some of them as like professional actors because like you said, it's a no budget, very little, like,
Right.
maybe a few, I'm guessing maybe a few $100 spent on like food, microphone, camera, that kind of
Right,
thing.
right. We pay crew and we pay
Okay.
for food and we pay for effects and things like that. But where some films would have a lot more time to do something, we don't. Where some films would be able to finance a location in a better way, we don't always have that ability. So we are, when you're forced to rely on creativity and ingenuity and hey, you can use my house this weekend, then we have to do that. And not and you can be a working actor and not be in the union yet,
Oh
because
yeah.
we have non-union actors, obviously. But yeah, they're at all levels.
Yeah, so does that mean that some of the actors who are working in your films are also working in higher budget productions?
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that really speaks to their passion for the things that you guys are making.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a moment ago about how they're really enthusiastic about horror films, and indeed, all of your movies, or at least all the movies that I can find that you've made, are horror films. I'm curious if you could talk a bit about that, like what it is that makes so many people, because this is definitely a pattern I've noticed where uh, there are so many people who are amateurs in the sense of not making a living doing this, who are really passionate about specifically horror films. And I'm not entirely sure why that is. I think I count as one of those people, but I don't really understand what it is about my own psychology that makes me so passionate about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So the answer is twofold. I do dramas, I do make comedies, but
Mhm.
for features, I make horror. And this is, like I said, it's twofold. Number one, and it sounds cliche, but I have grown up since childhood a lifelong horror obsessed fan. I have never not, going back to early childhood, never not absolutely loved horror. It has been my first love of genre of all film, and that's never changed. as old as I am now. And I learned early on, I learned by making a feature comedy a while back and trying to sell it. If you don't have a name in that film,
Mm,
in a comedy, in a drama, in a love story, if you don't have a recognizable name, no one wants it.
hmm,
However, if you make a horror film, because it has such a built in audience and the genre is so huge, you don't need any names. You can make it and people will buy it based on the fact that it's a horror film or that the DVD box cover looks good or the title is interesting. I mean, nobody buys a romantic comedy based on the poster. But
hmm.
horror, they do. They always have. And very often the posters are misleading. In the DVD covers are misleading, even in my films when I didn't have a say over it because you want to attract people. Sorry. But there's a built-in audience that will watch a horror film. You don't have to say who's in it. You don't have to sometimes say what it's about. If it looks cool, horror fans will watch it. They will check it out. That's why there's this cult group of Tubi followers that like they are horror obsessed on Tubi. But I've never seen a cult of like, uh, action film fans on Tubi, romantic comedy fans on Tubi. That doesn't exist. Horror is its own gang, sort of.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the closest I've seen to anything else is like fans of old kung fu movies.
Yes.
Watch
Yes.
a bunch of those on Tubi as well.
Yes. Correct.
Um, so let's talk a bit about some specific movies. I think my favorite of the ones of yours that I watched was Aware of the Wolf, which is a life coach's odd methods help embolden his students, but their transformation takes a dangerous turn when they start to embrace their inner wolves. It's one of those sort of classic premises in that like it's about werewolves, but the werewolves are a metaphor, but also the werewolves are literal. One of those things that you can do in horror.
Right.
Um, and I found that the werewolf is usually presented in films as either like a purely menacing, threatening figure, or as this really like sympathetic figure, and where it's a tragic thing, like in the old Wolfman movies.
Mhm, mhm.
Um, Whereas in this, the werewolf was presented almost as more of like an empowering figure, where like becoming this werewolf was this, positive thing, to a degree at least. And I'm curious, what motivated that talk a bit about the themes there with that film.
Sure. So I knew I wanted to make a werewolf film, and I like starting with a title. It's just a quirk, and I couldn't find a cool title. And then I'm just driving, and and I have all my kids in the car, and I can't hear myself think because they're so damn loud. And then I just kept saying like. All of a sudden it came like werewolf, aware of the wolf, aware what wolf, aware of the wolf inside you, and I'm like, oh, cool. And that threw me back to like I grew up on like movies like Death Wish and The Exterminator, like vigilante movies about like good people overtaking the bad guys. So I thought, what if there was a way to get people who lacked confidence, people that were doormats, people that were abused, to like find this inner like strength. And then I said, well, we'll call that inner strength like their inner wolf. So they're aware of the wolf inside of them, werewolf. And then it's like about transformation, going from somebody that can't stand up for themselves to somebody that can. And that's like bringing out the wolf in you. But like you said, thank God you can do anything in horror. I said, but wouldn't it be cool if there actually was a werewolf? Like it did go that extra step. So yeah, that's kind of where that came from.
Nice. Did dating horror stories also start with the title?
Dating horror stories, I thought, wow, how many movies there must be called dating horror stories? Because it's like it's giving you the movie right there. Right, and because everyone uses that term, and I couldn't find any. There's TV shows where the episode is called Dating Horror Stories, but I couldn't find one film called Dating Horror Stories. I'm like, oh my God.
Huh.
I love doing compilations a la Creep Show and Tales from the Crypt and things. And it's so easy to write like 3 short films as opposed to 1 large feature. So I'm like, "Oh my god, write 3 funny, creepy stories about dating gone wrong." And you call it dating horror stories. That's like a no-brainer. That's how that fell into my lap. I also know, just off the, path for a second, I know when you don't have a large budget, sometimes you can't take yourself too seriously. So I am able to sort of laugh at and have like a pun in everything I do. I never take myself too seriously. So,
Yeah. I'm curious. So, with Dating Horror Stories and Aware of the Wolf, those came out in 2023 and 2020. Well, Aware of the Wolf was 2023.
mhm,
Dating Horror Stories was 2024.
mhm,
Were you doing the cinematography on both of those, or did you work with different directors of photography on them? Because they both, they're both clearly low budget, but I found Dating Horror Stories to be like more visually. Uh,
mhm.
I'm not quite sure what the word I'm searching for here.
Interesting.
Perhaps polished, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm technically illiterate. I don't know how to use a camera. I don't act like I know how to use any kind of electrical equipment. So I have been very blessed to have very good cameramen working with me on all my films. Dating Horror Stories had a DP named Austin Rappold, and he's excellent, and he's got a great eye, he has wonderful equipment, and yeah, I think did a great job filming that.
Yeah. Yeah, so something that I found myself, that I noticed about my reaction when I was watching Dating Horror Stories is that, it has characters in it who are, really horrible people, like the competitive eater, um, and it also has characters that I really, like, disliked and found annoying, not in that they were bad characters, but that, like, "Oh my god, I can't stand this person," sort of
Right.
thing. And there was not very much overlap in those 2 groups, and I found that really interesting, and I'd love it if you could talk a bit about the characterization and what you put into, the script and direction in order to make, like, a terrible person be sympathetic or a decent
Right.
person be annoying, that sort of thing.
So I have a certain theory that I used to have about myself, and now I think I somewhat have about characters that I create. If you love them, great. If you hate them, great. If you don't feel anything for them, I've made a mistake. I don't like middle of the road. I don't like forgettable. If I make a character who's annoying and you're like, oh, I want to see them dead, good. You have feelings toward them. If I have somebody that you can sympathize for or have empathy for or and maybe relate to in some way, great. I just get very angry at myself when I make lukewarm characters that are kind of generic and don't you feel nothing for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's true in general for, all sorts of films,
Yeah,
that but especially for horror where, uh, in general, like in a comedy or something, things typically end up, pretty good for all of the characters, but in horror, it can really go either way.
yeah,
And so caring about what happens to a character, whether it's good or bad, is particularly important in horror.
I think so. Yes, I agree. Because there are so many horror movies that you're looking for the body count and like say in the first half hour 12 people got killed. Do you have any thoughts about any of them or just how they got killed? If you can actually have some connection to the people, I think it just brings you into the film more.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So you work with very low budgets, as you said earlier. What sort of things would you do differently if you had access to, say, $50,000 for a movie?
Yeah, I pray a lot less. Um, so I think really for the genre, I would put so much of it into effects. Your really good special effects are um, they can be expensive. So when you don't have money, you try to cut corners or don't show things all the time. And for sometimes that reads as too low budget or it upsets people because they want to see it and you want to do more. In the films I did early on, I worked with an effects man and Jeremy Sellenfriend, who had Monster in My Closet effects, and he's gone on now to he worked on Smile and Smile 2, and he works on American Horror Story, I believe, and tons of things. He's amazing. So
Cool.
yeah, I was very spoiled early on. That was when I had a credit card. I could still put things on. But once that got maxed out and I'm, really don't have that. Yeah. So it would go to effects, probably better locations. When you don't have any money, you're forced to use what locations you can. That's why so many horror films are in someone's woods or their backyard, which looks like the woods. But if you have access to, really great locations, more time to film things, uh, your crew getting better equipment, better post-production ability, that's where I'd put it. Because you can't ask people to work for free. I mean, actors, yes, because there's so many actors dying to work. And it's not that actors should work free, but actors will enjoy working free and they just want to perform and they want footage and they want to be in things. So, but crew you have to pay, and the better crew you get, the more equipment you want to use, that all costs money. That's where I would put it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What film was that had the special effects guy working on it?
Oh, so I did a film called Skinned Alive, which was
Ah,
also called Eat Your Heart Out way back then. That was distributed by Lionsgate. I did a film called Pink Eye, where we just had a lot more time and money for effects, and that was very early in Jeremy's career too. So I think he learned how to do things with me, and then went on to be famous and left me beside. Um, but yeah, but that's going back about like 20 years.
yeah.
Yeah,
So Eat Your Heart
15,
Out
20 years.
is on Tubi, but
Yes.
it doesn't say that you directed it. So what was your role in that one?
Right. So I was the writer and producer of that. It was directed by
Ah, okay.
James Tucker, who I've been working with. James now edits all my films. I've been working with James for maybe 30 years at this point.
Ah,
Yeah, so James Tucker directed that. There was a film called Aunt Rose we did, which on Tubi is called No One Gets Out. That was our first feature-length horror film. Um, and then Skinned Alive, which was called Eat Your Heart Out. And then when Lionsgate took it, they changed it to Skinned Alive, even though
oh.
no one gets skinned alive in the movie. And so there's stuff like
Oh, I'm reminded of what Chroma would do, where they would buy cheap horror movies and then rename them something really
that.
enticing, like
Yes,
uh, Nymphoid Barbarian in Dinosaur Hell.
yes, yes,
Um,
exactly.
it's interesting that it's on Tubi under the title "Eat Your Heart Out" because you said it got renamed by the distributor.
Yeah, but
Um,
what happens is I think after a while they after a certain amount of years, certain films they just aren't sort of there anymore
hmm,
depending on the contract.
yeah, yeah, the rights expire, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And we're
so
not talking about big Hollywood films here.
right.
We're talking about these low budget indies where in the video store days you could churn them out because they know they put it out, put a cool cover on it, put it in the video store, people are going to rent it. Those days were much easier to do films, to get them out there because there was, that market. Now it's a little different. There's still a huge need for content, but it's just a little bit of a different world.
Yeah, yeah. So tell me a bit about how you've done distribution on your films, because uh, I'm was a little surprised to hear that that they got picked up by a big distributor, and most of the people that I interview do the distribution themselves with like Film Hub or
Right,
something like
right,
that.
right. So we were, and I don't use this term lightly, blessed to uh, to run into Bayview Entertainment. Bayview, one of their more notable films, they released Skinamarink, and Bayview has been great. They're sort of they'll take a film that they know has got a very small budget, but that they feel is interesting or that some people might like, and they'll get behind it. And they're one of the few distributors that didn't ask me for this outrageous money in advance to distribute it. And like some of those people ask me for so much money. I'm like, I can make 3 more films for the price that you want. So, they put out a wide variety of films, but they are open to taking these sort of very smaller budget horror films and thrillers and giving them an audience and getting them out there. And, that's great that there's still companies like that,
Yeah.
because it's really hard to do self-distribution. Even if you have a great project, you can make this movie, you can get it out on something like Film Hub, but like, how do people know about it? It's
Yeah.
so hard to get people to know. That's why I'm grateful even to be on your show right now, because this will at least alert some other people that these films exist. It's hard.
Yeah. You might
It's
get
hard.
another half dozen Tubi views.
Yeah, which would be about 44 cents maybe, but hey, it's something. It's something.
Yeah.
Yeah. My wife keeps saying, "When are you going to make money at this?" And I said, probably another 200 years, but at some point we'll be all right.
Oh, yeah, no, generally, this is not a money-making endeavor for most of the people that I talk to. This is
Right.
a, set of passion projects.
Right. But Damien Leone has shown that it can be. You can get lucky. You can get some indie film that just breaks loose. It's like hitting the lottery, but at least it gives hope.
Yeah.
I hope. I, I hope so anyway.
Yeah, yeah, the Terrifier films are a really interesting, sort of case study in that, like, I think they I mean, the first Terrifier, most people haven't seen or even aware that the first Terrifier exists, as part of the All Hallows Eve,
Correct.
anthology film,
Correct. Correct.
but then the feature-length one was the one that, really broke out.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for a while. Like the earliest one I've found of yours is 2005, and I'm not sure that that is the earliest. Uh,
Yeah, I think so.
okay. So, if you could, you know, travel back in time and tell your younger self anything you wanted to about filmmaking, what advice would you like? What would you do differently?
Okay. Um, I wouldn't rush casting, because
Mm,
sometimes I'm so eager that I don't, like, I'll see somebody once. I've been in the acting world. I mean, I'm a professional acting teacher. So I've been in the acting world for a long, long time. And sometimes when casting, I see someone who's good and I get very excited. I'm like, yeah, yeah, we'll take them. And in the business, usually they have callbacks, second read throughs, third read throughs. And oh no, they look right and they're good. Let's go. And then I'm on set and I'm just like, ooh, what's happening here? So I would have slowed down with casting. I would have taken a little more time, not been so impetuous. Um, I guess I would have tried to raise more money when possible, although that seemed impossible at the time. Um, and then probably would have had a little less expectations, because younger, new filmmakers, they have big hopes and dreams for their product. Like, you make a movie and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be it. We're getting theatrical release. And you get these hopes and dreams. And then all of a sudden, like Brain Damage Video is just like, yeah, we'll take it. We're not going to pay you for it, but we'll take it. And you're just like, wait, it's not at AMC. And you have to be realistic. Life has taught me to be realistic. But in the beginning, sometimes there's disappointment because of that. And I guess just enjoy it more. I mean, I did enjoy it, but I would have even enjoyed it more, because, when you're younger and you're making films, as long as you don't have a family dependent on eating based on the sale of that film, you can just enjoy the process more. You can just do it for the love of filmmaking. Like you said, most people you talk to aren't getting rich from this.
yeah.
Usually they're losing money, they're borrowing money, their credit cards. And I know somebody that, like, they had an inheritance left to them and they took it and boom, on a film. And it's just like, wow, it is such a labor of love. It really, really is. That You have to enjoy it. I would have also told myself not to go into a deep depression when people give you horrendous reviews, calling it the worst film they've
Ooh.
ever seen and half a star and so much. I mean, that really used to mess me up because I'd be like, no, wait, it's good. And they're like, the acting sucks. And I'm like, no, no, does it? And then I question
Mhm.
myself. You just have to realize. And then what I learned to do is I'd go to IMDb and I'd go to like The Godfather or The Exorcist, and I'd look at the lowest ratings and I'd see all these reviews crashing those movies. And I'd say, oh, okay. So if the best of the best can be trashed, anything can be. Don't take it personally.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, reading the reviews for anything that you make is a dangerous psychologically dangerous thing to do.
It is. It is. I've sat there shell shocked, and you can't be. You have to have thick skin. Not everybody's going to like what you do, and especially with the on the internet, people enjoy bashing. They
Yeah.
enjoy bashing you, so you just have to literally take that with a grain of salt and just move forward.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, good advice. Um, I think that, I completed my first feature recently, and I think that I went into it with much more realistic expectations because of having spoken with so many people who did things similarly. So I'm curious, mentioned earlier that you like used to pay for these movies uh on a credit card, and
Or through an investor.
or through an investor. Oh, okay.
And an investor meaning, um, well, if I'm going to be the lead, I'll fund it. Okay, cool. Hey, yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay, so yeah, that's something that I have advised people who are aspiring to make their first like micro budget film, saying like when you look for people to put money into your film, you should really pitch it to them not as this is an investment that will make you money. You should pitch it to them as like you can be a patron of the arts. This is like buying a painting more than it is
Yes,
like buying a stock.
yes.
Uh uh so
I've had people say, if you want, John, I can invest. I can put some money into this. And the first thing, and as much as I want it or need it, first thing I say is, there's zero chance you'll get it back. So you can't look at it. There's no, even if it does well, the chances of getting money back on a film would be it's almost never, unless it is a bigger film that gets a nice little mini release and gets on Shutter perhaps, and gets out there more. But otherwise, it's yeah. I won't take money for a film because I know if they want it back, it's not going to happen.
yeah. Yeah. Something that I haven't seen a ton of with, these, like, very low budget films, that I'm curious why I haven't seen more of is crowdfunding, like Kickstarter and things like that. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, very. And I'm always very confused how they raise the money because, well, all my friends are poor. And like, I can't fathom just seeing something on a Kickstarter and here's $1,000, here's $10,000. I don't know you. And I mean, it's so strange to me that some people seem to be able to raise it and some can't raise anything. It's weird.
Yeah, well, so I've run a bunch of Kickstarters, only one of them for a film, but I've run a bunch of different ones, and while you do put in those like $500 or 1,000 or whatever options,
Right.
you expect that you'll get like zero to two people who back that, and you'll get a lot more people who will give you like 20 or $30 for a
Right. And
DVD.
hopefully those all add up. Right.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um,
And how did that turn out? How did you find it worked?
well, so most of my Kickstarters have been for tabletop games, like board games or role playing games, and those have been pretty consistently successful,
That's good.
and funded. The Kickstarter for my feature film did fund. I had a goal of 1,000, and I raised a little over 2,000, and I ended up
Good.
spending a total of about 4,000 on the films. So the rest of it came out of my pocket.
Okay.
Uh, and so certainly, I think it was a good idea to do it. I think it adds a layer of accountability and excitement from people who are
Sure,
eager to watch it.
sure.
And it I'd rather spend $2,000 of my money and $2,000 of other people's money than $4,000 of my money.
Yeah, anything that contributes to the film is great because there's a lot of expenses that people don't even realize before the film, during the film, and then after the film. I mean, I spend 2,000 in film festival submissions alone sometimes, and it's crazy how expensive it
Yeah.
can get. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I also I just spent a few $100s on film festival submissions. I was previously not planning on submitting it to any film festivals,
Mhm.
but then some a friend that I interviewed earlier on this show really encouraged me to, and so I ended up doing it. I'm curious what motivated you to choose to submit it to film festivals as opposed to like just putting it out there directly on Tubi or what have you.
So, I try to do both simultaneously. I love film festivals. I actually run a few. I run the New Jersey Mystery, Crime, and Horror Film Festival and the New Jersey Documentary Film Festival.
Nice.
Um, and I'm just a huge proponent of them. I love them. When one of my films was in the New York Horror Film Festival and I screened it there, it was such an exciting feeling. So I love that. I love getting into things, and I think it's really good for the actors. When you say, "Hey, got into this festival and got into that and won an award for this," I think that makes them feel really good, and I think that's very important to me, the actors and the crew. Also, when you go to a festival and watch your movie, you're live in a theater, ideally, getting that reaction. You can't get it's great to get a film distributed and read a review online, but you're not in the theater with the reaction, and that's part of it. That's part of the excitement being in a movie theater. And when this kill happens, do people like that, or is this joke funny? And I think that it's similar to theater, live theater versus film and TV. You're getting that feedback instantly. When your movie is in a movie theater with other people, even a small theater, you're feeling the audience's reaction to it, good or bad. And I think that's very exciting. I think that's one of the great things that film festivals offer.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So you are does that mean that you're only submitting to festivals where you are confident that you would attend it yourself if it got accepted?
Right. So I used to submit everywhere. And I'd be like, oh, it's in Vegas and it's in Oklahoma. And I mean, then it would just like, it would happen. I wouldn't hear anything about it. And yeah, it's great to get the laurel on the poster, but then it's just like, well, that seemed like a waste of $60. So I now try to submit either to things that are prestigious if I think I have something worthy of getting in, or things within. I'm in the New Jersey area, so if it's in the New York, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, New Jersey, if it's in that general area, I will submit because I'd love to go, and I think the cast and crew should go as well. But yeah, if it's something in North Dakota, I'm not going to pay for it because I'm not even going to know what's happening there.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
I um I also run a very small film festival here in Southern Colorado, Slime Fest.
cool,
Uh,
great name,
thank you.
great name,
Yeah, I aim for gross out horrors and comedy sort
awesome,
of things.
cool,
Um, and yeah, I think most of the people that their films get accepted are either local or they don't attend.
right,
I really only had one film last year where people came from where the director and crew came from a sizable distance to
right,
watch it.
right.
Uh, and yeah, I it's really interesting trying to think about my perspective on film festivals as someone who organizes one and as someone who submits to them.
Hmm.
And it's really easy for me to understand the appeal of film festivals as someone who runs them, where like I get paid a very small amount of money to watch a bunch of films and curate a list that I think
Right,
will work well for other people.
right.
But then as a filmmaker, the appeal is a little harder for me to see.
Well, Yeah, it's funny you said that because I have a festival coming up the Saturday and Sunday after Halloween next weekend, and in the New Jersey local filmmaker blocks, they're all sold out. And then the 2 p.m. block, which is filmmakers from all around the country or all around the world, there's like one ticket sold.
Hmm.
So it's really a little disheartening, but I try to offer a wide variety of films. I don't want to limit it to local. I want to put good films in. So I do notice that the ticket sales are very unbalanced. But also, when I do have local festivals, like I'll do a Q&A with all the filmmakers afterwards. And I think they like that. They appreciate being able to talk about their films a little bit, being able to answer questions from the audience. I think that's a nice thing. And it gives you a little bit of a pat on the back when something accepts you, a festival, because you get so many submissions. So the assumption is if you get in, it was worthy, or I mean, worthy doesn't really make sense, but they liked it enough to put it in. And it's a little bit of recognition for your film because it's sometimes hard to feel that. So there's that as well. And when filmmakers have their little badges around the yeah, I feel like that's the badge for my film. So,
Nice.
when filmmakers have their badges on, and it's cool. It's like a cool thing. You network. I tell all my actors, like, listen, come to the film festival. If you see a film and the director's there and it's really good, introduce yourself. It's like a good place to network when possible.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like your film festivals are, more sizable than mine. So I'm curious, do you have
No,
any?
they're small. They're small. They're just
Yeah, well, I mean, you like charge for the tickets, for example.
yes, that I do.
Yeah. I'm I don't know,
That
I'm
I
guessing that's because like you said, you're renting out
Yeah, we have to
a
rent a
theater.
space and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been fortunate enough to have local places donate the use of their space
That's
for
nice.
the festivals.
That's really
So
nice.
yeah, yeah, it has been. It's not as nice a venue as a full-on theater, but some pretty enjoyable places. I'm curious if you have any words of wisdom or anything like that for making the festival experience be really good and or for growing it, anything like that.
Well, hmm, yes. I just got to think about. I know the answer is yes. I just got to think about the answer, how to explain it. The communication is always very important. I try to have very clear communication with filmmakers. Um, a lot of filmmakers, I accept them, and they don't send me their film. And I'll send them 5, 6 emails. I'm like, hey, listen, it's coming up. I need to get it digitized on the block, and they just don't communicate. Um, that's just like a pet peeve. Um, the more people who show up, the better. Filmmakers, when your film is in, you have the cast and crew show up because when it's a bigger crowd, it's always more well received. At film festivals, you're not having these huge expectations. These are films that aren't necessarily getting distribution, and most of them are shorts. So it's kind of like, okay, so these are filmmakers that are trying to get a name for themselves. They're out there, they're working hard, they're putting their time and money and effort into it. So show up and like appreciate the film and like be there in the audience and support it. And it's when my shows are sold out, the vibe is awesome. And then afterwards, people congratulating each other and people taking photos. It's like a really great vibe. And for filmmakers who are sometimes weekend warriors, like, can't make money on this, we shoot on weekends because I have a real job. Those film festivals make them feel more like filmmakers. They're up on the stage, they're answering questions, and there's a little prestige to this thing that, like, instead of like your mother saying, "You're making another film. What happened to the last one?" Now you're like, but you know what? People are applauding. They like it. It was well received. It looked great on the screen. Like it lifts you in an industry that likes to crush everyone. It lifts you up a little bit and makes you feel like a real filmmaker. And I think that's super important for audiences to understand and for filmmakers to appreciate, if that makes sense. I just rambled there. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. I No, that makes sense. It's about validating the work and
Yes,
craft and everything that people put into their projects.
yes. And understanding, Marvel has a budget of 200 million, and then you'll still see films with like a $20 million budget that are awful. These people are doing everything they can to get these films in. So don't criticize, every review I have. Well, this ultra low budget. Yeah, I know that. I know that. But can you see beyond that into the story, into the characters, is it an interesting story, something you haven't seen before? So I feel like you asked what to make it better. I think when the expectations are to just enjoy different forms of art, and especially in horror, you don't need a big budget. Go have fun with these movies. Are the kills cool? Is the killer scary? Is it a fun twist on something? You know what I mean? Just go to enjoy it rather than compare it to things that are with the amount of crew on some of these movies is more than the entire crew of 20 years of me making films. All the crew members couldn't match one. So you just have
Yeah.
to go and appreciate for what it is.
Yeah. There's a filmmaker that I interviewed a while back and whose work I still follow, Steve Rudzinski,
Mhm.
who he makes comedies and horror comedies. And his most recent film is Wally Meets Popeye, where his character that he has a sort of earnest style character that
Mhm.
is in films.
Mhm.
And now that Popeye's in the public domain, anyone who wants to can make a Popeye movie.
Right.
And there's a scene in it where they break the fourth wall and a character points out like, "Hey, we're supposed to be on a tropical island right now, but like this is clearly rural Ohio." And
That's
he
great.
and he just his character Wally just goes into this rant about like, "Wow, you noticed a technical flaw in this no budget horror
Right,
film?
right. Call it out.
Amazing."
Yes, because there's going to be somebody sitting there saying, "That's not an island. That's so not an island."
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, right. It's not. Now can we move on? Yeah, so I love that.
Yeah, yeah, and it's so funny because like if you really like pay attention, there are a lot of like films that were, sometimes pretty low budget independent films at the time that are now considered classics where you can notice that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um like in the original Halloween, which is set in Haddonfield, which I forget what state that's supposed to be in, somewhere in the Midwest.
Mhm.
And there are palm trees because it was filmed in California,
Right, right.
that kind of
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
And
It's funny you say it. There's a film, one of my favorite films called Mother's Day by Charles Kaufman,
oh yeah, yeah,
Lloyd
yeah.
Kaufman's brother. And
Yeah.
super low budget at the time, but now it's like released on 4K now, and it's got a huge cult following, and I'm a huge fan of it. And there's a scene before someone's head gets chopped off, and it's obviously this fake wood, like totally fake head you see with like cuts under it already. It's just sitting there before it gets chopped off. And like, yeah, you could see it back then, but it didn't matter almost. You know what I mean? It didn't matter. People are more picky now, I think, for some reason.
Yeah. Uh and also it makes me wonder like for a lot of things in the arts where people talk about how great things used to be, there's very much a survivorship bias where the films that people remember from 50 years ago are the ones that were really distinctive, really memorable,
Yes.
or really mainstream, whereas the films that people are talking about that got released 5 minutes ago, uh, they'll talk about all sorts of things. And so I think that there's people like look at the past with rose tinted glasses in that regard,
Yeah.
and people the bad reviews for Alien or whatever uh get forgotten
Yeah.
because nowadays it's recognized as a classic.
Yeah, it's all true. That's all very true. Yeah. Hmm. Interesting.
So you're putting out movies pretty frequently. It looks like at least one a year, possibly more.
Mhm.
What do you have in your pipeline?
So I have, and I do that because it keeps me sane. Um, Yeah, I always believe that if you're a creative person and you don't have an outlet, you'll absolutely lose your mind. So yes, I have next month. There's a film coming out called Once Upon a Crime.
Yeah.
It's three short stories, dark crime ridden stories.
Okay.
And then early next year, I've got a thriller horror ish coming out called Ashes of Vengeance. It's a little supernatural. And yes, it is. I churn them out because why the hell not? You know, I mean, yeah, it. I really think that continuing to work in whatever means you can, even if it is you can't get a bigger budget, as long as you can keep going and try to put out good material, try to do good acting, try to keep the stories interesting, creative. Um, why not? Why not? Why should any? If you can do it, I think you should do it.
Yeah.
Mm.
Do you have any ideas that you would like to make, but you don't have like the resources or the cast or something that you would like to or make them with?
There are so many things, and I think what's happened is I've I've retrained my mind to think within budget constructs. Like, I want, if I've got this incredibly gory slasher, my first thought is, ooh, but I don't know how many days of effects that's going to be. And I don't know who's going to let
Mm.
me get all this blood all over their house because my wife's already banned me from shooting any more horror movies in the house because the blood stains are still on the ceiling. So I don't think as creatively anymore as I wish I could because I
Mm.
think within what can I do, not what do I want to do, which is kind of a shame. Um, but like I'll watch a movie and like I'll think if this could have been a massacre at the end, it would have been so much more impactful. If I could have had like say Aware of the Wolf, just for an example, if I could have had like 5 or 6 werewolves at that point come out and rip someone apart, yes, that would have been great. But
Yeah.
I wasn't even thinking that way because I'm like, okay, I have this many hours, I have this much money, I better sque- squeeze it in. Um, but I guess to your point, I think I should try to think bigger because maybe one day I can, and then I will appreciate that more.
Yeah, as long as you don't frustrate yourself by coming up with ideas you can't act on.
Yeah, yeah. I tell people like I'm writing my first script. I'm like, okay, do you want to make it? And they're like, yeah, I'm gonna try and make it on my own. I say, okay. So when it opens with a helicopter and someone jumping out of the helicopter through a window, you've already started incorrectly. You have to think what you can do without crushing someone's creative spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, well, that reminds me of something that people have been talking about a lot recently is the use of AI for things like special effects. Like you could generate a
Yeah.
short video of somebody jumping out of a helicopter that way. I'm
Yeah.
curious for your thoughts on that.
So I'll try to keep this concise. I'm I'm pro live actor. I'm pro live special effects artist. But yes, if an actor agrees to something and saying, "Yeah, listen, in this scene, I'm just going to have your head like slice open sideways, and it looks just like you. I don't have to pay someone for that." In my mind, I'm like, "Holy shit!" Like, yeah, I can make an incredible effect. But then the other part of me is like, "No, you can't do that. You have to. It's cheating, and AI is like the enemy." And so I'm a little torn. I do know that it's not going anywhere. I do know that it will 2, 3 years from now be so involved in the creative process. I'm pretty sure it's not going away due to people's objections. I just hope you can keep everybody working and creative and use it to fill gaps that somebody just may not be able to financially or otherwise. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Um, yeah, I have the two examples that come to my mind, one I saw and one I just heard somebody talking about. The one I heard somebody talking about is that like there's a scene in their movie where there's like a dog fighting ring and they used AI to generate the dog fight.
Which makes
Uh,
sense because you don't want real dogs fighting.
yeah, yeah,
Right,
exactly. And the one that I saw, and in fact was in a movie that I accepted into Slimefest, which I didn't notice until like I obviously I screened it before
right,
I played it for other people, but I didn't actually realize until I was watching it on the big screen, like, oh, this one shot is AI.
right,
There's a crowd shot of a bunch of zombies.
right,
And it's an extremely low budget film, and they do have individual zombies that are people in makeup, but then when they show the
right.
crowd,
See,
that's AI.
honestly, and I know my son tells me about the wars on Letterbox over AI, but I I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You're giving actors work. You're doing what you can. You need a shot of a bunch of zombies. You cannot afford that. So why is it so bad? And why is it that CGI is okay, stock footage is okay? Why is it so bad for a quick shot like that? I don't think I would penalize a filmmaker for that. I think it's just adding something that they can't do.
Yeah,
That's my opinion.
yeah, yeah. I interviewed another director who pointed out that like a lot of the use of AI is stuff that people don't realize is AI,
Right,
where like he made a film that was shot like entirely in front of a green screen where it was him and props and
right,
other actors and stuff, but then the
right,
backgrounds were all green screened. And when he made it, he had to do a whole lot of manual touching up of the borders of the actors with the green screen.
right,
And then 6 months after he finished doing that, an AI tool that does that automatically was released, and he said, you know, oh, I'll just edit one scene using this tool. Like I've already finished editing the movie. Let's see how efficient it is. And
right,
after using it, he's like, "Oh my god, I could have saved myself 6 months of work if I had this tool."
right,
Uh,
right. So there, yeah. I mean, I get the absolute anti AI world. I get why they feel that way, but there was a time in the early 70s, if you needed a dinosaur, sometimes you had to create a dinosaur. And then CGI came along, and nobody was like, hey, the computer's doing that, because you're like, well, a person's actually programming the computer. But it's now Jurassic World is all CGI dinosaurs for the most part. And it will eventually move to AI for cost efficiency because that's the industry we're in. Um, so I think there has to be a way of accepting with limitations. I don't think you can ban it permanently because it's not going to go away. And like if he's doing the work, it's not like he's paying someone to do it and taking their job away. If he's doing the work and it would have saved him months, well, how is that bad?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I agree. I'm a lot less anti-AI than a lot of people I know. And one thing that I found really interesting watching discussions of AI on the internet among like filmmakers
Mhm,
is that the people I know who are making movies all the time and have been making movies for a while and are, you know, working with a bunch of real humans
mhm.
are more likely to be embracing AI than the people I see just talking about how they want to make movies.
Mm, yes. Yes, because when you're in the trenches and you understand what things are about and where your limitations are, knowing there's something that can help you in your goal and your dream that is not hurting anyone, um, of course you're going to embrace that. And it just gives you little things here. I'm not saying make a whole movie out of it and replace actors, but there are ways of enhancing things that are not going to hurt anyone. and it's going to really help you. And the cost efficiency is incredible. So yeah, I understand why filmmakers would feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's but it's definitely not leaving. So people who are like never, don't say never, say never.
Yeah,
Say
yeah.
never.
That's uh it's definitely not it's definitely not leaving.
It's not leaving.
Um
Yeah.
so uh where aside from AI, where do you see the future of independent film going?
So the greatest thing that ever happened to filmmakers was the over the last 20, 30 years was the addition of digital cameras and DV cameras and 4K cameras that are able to shoot films that look great without the expensive camera work, because now anyone can make a movie to some extent, as you could not nearly do in the 80s or 90s. Even you just couldn't do it. It wasn't possible unless you're like a camcorder. So that is changed the game, and I think that's continuing. And more really extraordinary cameras are coming out for less and less money, and filmmakers are going to realize, wait, I can do this. And
Yeah.
I think you're going to inspire that. I know that content is at a more demand than ever, because every streaming channel wants things. There's a million streaming channels growing every day, online and so forth. So the need is there, the want is there. Um, I just I don't know where it will go next. It's like it seems like everything's pro indie filmmaker now, and there's such a backlash on Hollywood for
Yeah.
putting out garbage and spending millions. I mean, movies that are losing 50, 100 million on their release. That that's got to impact somebody. That I guess my hope is that the indie world will be embraced more. Because can you imagine if these distributors and streaming sites actually paid filmmakers a decent amount of money to take these low budget films? They would not take it and go gamble it. They would take it and reinvest it into better films. If you gave me $100,000 and said you can't spend it on your wife and kids, I'd be like, great. And I'm making $100,000 film the next day, because you 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 need it, and that's what filmmakers want. But the struggle is so hard, and money's being piped into this BS movies that are being distributed through major distributors and through major theater chains, and no one's going, and they're losing so much money versus these indie films that, if given a little bit of financial help and stability, I think the filmmakers would just throw that right back into the productions.
Yeah, I love seeing little indie films succeed. Like you mentioned Terrifier earlier,
Yeah,
and also like I saw the TV Glow,
yeah,
Skinamarink,
yeah,
In a Violent Nature,
yeah.
all of those.
Last night I saw Shelby Oaks, which looked very high budget. But my son explained to me how it was like super crowdfunded, and like that's how they got it, and I loved it.
Nice.
So yeah,
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
really good.
Um, cool. Yeah, yeah, you mentioned digital cameras really sort of leveling the playing field in terms of making it a lot easier to make films, and
Yeah,
that's definitely true. And I think a pattern that I've noticed, having obviously I wasn't, working back in the days where you had to use film, but I've read like a bunch of autobiographies of filmmakers who were, and it really seems like it used to be much harder to make a film, but once you made the film, it was much easier to make money off of it.
yes, 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 absolutely.
And
Well, I
so,
guess is that maybe a supply and demand thing? I mean, if everyone's making a horror film now, if a distributor said, "Hey, send me a horror film for distribution," they'd get 100,000 films. But when you needed real film, and you needed a full crew and everything, and you didn't have that, there were so many less films that when you did have one, people wanted to take advantage of that. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I definitely think that's a major factor. It really is the like you just said, the supply and demand,
Yeah.
that, even if the demand has gone up, if the supply has gone up a lot more, the prices can
Right.
fall.
Right. Right.
And yeah, and that really creates this sort of tension that I don't see people really acknowledging very much between, on the one hand, people who want to make film because they just want to create art and this is the medium that they want to create the art in,
Right.
versus people who want to make a living making film, and that things that make things easier for anyone who just wants to make art make it harder for people to make a living doing that.
Yes. I believe most of these people who are doing it for the love of it would love to make a living. I believe that would be their dream to make a money at these things. I mean, my God, I wish I could. Um, it is just so difficult. It is so difficult, and you need so many things in place and so many components, and you have to get lucky. And then I've been hearing horror stories of just like what Amazon Prime actually pays people when
Mm.
the films are on there, and it's in the pennies. These are billion-dollar companies, and it, it, we sometimes the unattractive person will say yes just because someone asked them out. And strange analogy, but I think filmmakers are so desperate to get things out. They're willing to do it for no money. They're willing to put their films out there, and no matter what they spend on it, and if they're not making anything, because they love to do it. And distributors and companies know this. And if I'm going to take this film, I'm not going to give you any money. We'll give you a percentage if it makes anything, but we're not going to pay you, and we're going to try and make the money off of it. And some filmmakers that are like, well, no, I want this up front, they'll always be able to find another film. So I think it's hard there because if you can get something for free, why are people paying for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's sad. It's sad. Um, But there's not if your film doesn't have somehow a way of saying I can guarantee this money, that money, that's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, and I really like you mentioned, even if you spend $200 million on the movie and $200 million on the marketing for the movie, there's still not a guarantee that it'll make money. So I
No, and
don't
very often it doesn't.
yeah, I don't think you can guarantee that a film will make money.
Yeah,
You can just hope.
I know.
And the thing that makes it most likely is it being a sequel to a movie that has already made money, which is true even in indie stuff, like, again, going back to Damien Leone with,
Yeah,
Terrifier.
yeah, yeah. And listen, even if they start to become horrible, he can make them till 7, 8, 9, 10. They're still going to make money. It's just, it's why people do it. Sequels very often are just because, wow, we're broke. All right, let's just make a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, after I finished the edit on, my movie and, showed it to cast and crew and stuff, half of them came up to me afterwards and said, "Great, when are we making the sequel?"
Right.
And I'm like and I'm like,
Right.
we didn't really leave it in a place where it would make any sense to make a sequel,
Right.
but"
I've had actors say to me, "Can I be in the sequel?" I said, "You died. You had your head cut off.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
sequel?"
Like, the
Um,
movie ends with every character dying. I don't think
right.
we can really
Before we wrap, can you just tell me the name of your film so I can look out for it?
Sure. It's called The Philip Experiment, and, right now, I think the only thing you could find on it is the Kickstarter page because,
Okay.
it hasn't been like, the only I did a private showing for cast and crew and friends and family, and I sent a digital copy to the Kickstarter backers, but, like, I haven't even finished putting together the DVD for the Kickstarter
Okay. I
backers
just
yet.
wanted to keep it in my mind so when it's out, I can make sure I check it out.
Yeah, yeah, submitted it to a few film festivals that
Cool.
will hopefully some of them will play it, in the spring,
Cool. Cool.
uh, my initial plan, which I'm still probably going to do, is, use Film Hub to get it on Tubi.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool. Cool, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
so people can watch your movies on Tubi. Search for Aware of the Wolf, and then click on your name, Joshua Nelson, in the director, and that'll show all of the films that
Yes,
you made, which are on there.
yes.
Is there anywhere else, social media or anything like that, where you'd like to direct anybody?
No, I mean, Tubi's great because it's free. I mean, they're all on Amazon as well, but as you pay for. And as much as I wish the DVDs were still coming out, I see that that's not really happening for indie films. So Tubi's great, and if the more people watch it, the better it is. And it's always know that when you watch an independent film on Tubi, like the filmmakers appreciate it a lot. And
Yeah,
I know it's a mixed bag on there, but if you can just sit back and just appreciate it for what it is, sometimes you can enjoy them.
yeah, absolutely. I think Tubi is the best place for finding independent films,
Yeah,
certainly that I know of.
yeah,
Uh, Absolutely fantastic in terms of the quantity and quality and variety.
sure.
And uh, I discover so many films on there by watching one indie film, and then it suggests a half dozen
Yeah,
more.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. It's a fun rabbit hole to go down for sure.
yeah. So on the very slim chance that anybody listening to this doesn't already watch a bunch of movies on Tubi, you definitely should.
Right. And before I go, just let me thank you so much for doing this, for taking the time to introduce filmmakers to a different audience, let people know that what their stuff is out, because it's so hard to get marketing and for people to find your films. So something like this, it's great. Any filmmaker should really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yeah, this podcast does not have a huge audience, but the audience is really disproportionately largely made up of filmmakers.
Cool.
So I always enjoy talking with folks and getting reactions and things like that from people who then go and watch the movies that we're talking about.
Cool.
So
Cool.
yeah, thanks for coming on and talking with me.
My pleasure. Absolutely my pleasure.